There you go. We see it. We see it. You
North,
can share your webcam if you're a webcam share kind of person
yes, I'm
as well.
okay, great. Let me get this.
Yeah, we can see Northwoods Career Prep. That's awesome.
Perfect. All right. Sorry about all of this again. So I'm going to do that. And then my webcam, I will open that up for us if I can. All right. I'm going to start. I don't know. I lost power over my little mouse, so that's my problem. So I'm just going to talk and we'll go from there.
Okay. Well, this is awesome to have you. First of all, we're excited, you know, just to be able to have you with us today and share out. So looking forward to hearing everything that you're doing.
Thank you so much. And I do want to say thank you to Learning Council. I come to your conference every fall when it's here in Columbus, Ohio, because I always love the forward thinking and I love the sharing of ideas, particularly in how forward thinking you are with digital learning and ideas coming across. So today what I want to do is share a little bit about what's going on with us. And I called this Making It Work in the COVID Year. A little bit about us. I know many of the presenters over the years are large districts, and we are not a large district. I'm the principal of a dropout credit recovery high school here in Columbus, Ohio. I also this past year took more central office responsibilities as the executive academic director. And that's given me then some more fun responsibilities over our network of schools. So there are 11 of us here in the state of Ohio. That only means that as COVID hit and we needed to pivot to respond to the moment, I got to have more work. It was really fun. So, and that's what I'm sharing with you today. When I saw this opportunity, I just wanted to share out. Here's what we did in case what we've learned or what we've been trying will be useful or stealable for someone else. I really enjoyed Dr. Buddy's presentation. I took notes and I already know what I'm going to take back to my school. So the benefit of these things. So we are public community schools or charter schools. Our student population in my school is between 100 and 175. It doesn't vary that widely. The population varies in all of our schools between 100 and 175. We predominantly serve students ages 15 to 21 for whom the traditional school system has not worked. For minors, it's a choice of their parents, but the majority of our students are adults who have dropped out of high school elsewhere and want to come back and earn a high school diploma. So we serve urban poor. Many are court involved. A majority have significant life challenges. That can be from their parenting. Some are just in family businesses. Some have spent some time in the juvenile justice system and they're back, to start a new life. And increasingly, we have a significant number of international students, and many of them are recent to the country, having done some high school back home, wanting to come back and earn a diploma here in the state of Ohio. So bringing with them some English, but significant language challenges, being older students, again, for whom the traditional schools aren't going to be the best match. So that's who we serve, a very specialized population. And in a way, I've studied personalized learning for a while, and I know there are many definitions out there. And as I look at those definitions and study it, in our school, it's truly personalized learning. No two students have the same schedule because they each bring to us a unique transcript, unique needs, unique opportunities. So we have to address their learning in a unique way and set up a unique schedule for them. So while I don't have 1,000 students of a traditional school, high school, the 100 or so that I do have they take a lot of our attention. They need a lot of attention and support. So it's myself. I was an arts educator for 30 years. I worked in private as well as public schools. And at the end of that 30-year period, I was either going to quit or try to change the system. I was seeing more and more students who had need for a lot of support. And the system I was working in, we just couldn't do what we needed to do for the students. So I went back to school to work on my doctorate in education administration. And during that time, I began to work in administrative fields. I worked in Springfield City Schools on a Race to the Top Innovation grant, starting a new program for them called Family Academy. I worked in Marion to help start a 21st century learning school, after school program. I worked at Southwestern City Schools, working in their adult ed program with ESL and getting in GED support. And now I work here. So I've been kind of all over the map, but I mention all those things because they all inform my experience now. And I feel like I have the opportunity to bring everything I've been given to this game. So what are the challenges that we share with the traditional system? We have the challenge of providing an education in a COVID world. We're all struggling, and I read everyone's blogs and work frequently. We all still need to meet the state requirements, the testing, the student achievement, et cetera. We struggle with motivating students just like everyone. And again, we struggle with trying to meet the needs of a very diverse, unique population where every student has a unique situation. So some of the ideas that influence what we are doing, in some of my learning, I remember reading about John Dewey. He had these laboratory schools, and the idea behind that was they would take new ideas in education and work with a small population of students and try those out, and then take what they learned from that to the larger schooling enterprise, if you will. And I always thought that was a cool idea, a lab school. And I know here in Columbus, we've had that idea behind some of the charter schools that we've started over the years, that this could be a place where we could test out new ideas. And so that thinking has influenced, I know, what I do in serving our schools and our network is that we are a lab, and as independent charter schools like this, we have a chance to try things a little more easily. We can flex a little more easily without some of the traditional structures in place. Another thing that influences my thinking is just innovation theory and Clay Christensen, and how he was talking about how sometimes needs out on the edge of the circle of education or of an entity that you're studying or whatever can sometimes bubble up new ideas, new ways to do things. So I think about that opportunity as well as I work in this particular network. How can we use our moment, our flexibility, our freedom to help inform the practice of education? So with that in mind, I want to share with you the plan that we wrote. We call it Remote Plus Plus as the structure through which we scheduled our students starting this fall. Last spring, like everyone, we shut our schools down and we're working remotely from home, thinking we'd return in the fall. But then over the summer, as things, I don't even know how many plans we wrote, it was crazy. So as things kept changing, we finally landed on this. Finally deciding to have a Remote Plus Plus, and I'll define that for you here in a little bit. So what do we mean by Remote Plus Plus? All students were placed on a remote learning plan, and I'll show you the schedule here in a little bit. But we wanted to have some additional options. So plus number one is we wanted our students to be able to select in for an on-campus option. So we are located within the city of Columbus, and as we learned that Columbus was going to have their high school students be on full remote, we're thinking about what is life like for those students. They would likely be watching younger siblings, likely perhaps be working, that's common for our students, but also likely being tutors to some of their younger siblings, and maybe needing to get out of the house, maybe needing some structure for themselves. And so giving them a chance to select into an on-campus option would be helpful to them. The second thing that we wanted to offer, plus number two, we call it Night Owl. And again, thinking about our students in Columbus and perhaps some of their daily obligations, they may not get to their school until evening. So we have teachers on staff at night whom students can Zoom with and get into to get assistance with technology, with their learning, with tutoring or whatever. And we decided to have a staff that would serve network-wide and thus try to really kind of leverage our staff. So that's what we have going right now as plus number two. So what were some of the assumptions and how we developed our schedule? The student was assumed to be all remote learning. They can select in, as I've mentioned. The way we do live taught instruction courses, when we call live taught course, it's what most people would call a traditional classroom. So the teacher has syllabi, they have lesson plans, they have a start, class starts this day, the quarter ends here, the semester ends there. That type of instruction we offer through Zoom, virtual learning. We use Google Hangouts, Google Meets as well. We call FIT, stands for Focused Instructional Tutoring for us. And that is done both Zoom and virtually. And sometimes students can come on campus and be part of a FIT session there. Again, live tutoring then here on campus. EOC, of course, is end of course. So we have classes designed to prepare students for end of course, as well as career classes. We're a career network. And we're doing those virtually, and we are offering those network-wide. So our team of teachers have come together to work on those courses together to offer it to the students from all of our schools. And the way that class works is the teachers are taking turns rotating through an instructional time that they lead, and in those lessons go into breakout rooms, and in those breakout rooms, the local school teacher meets with just their students whom it's brought to the class, and they do some work with them that way. So students are getting the familiarity, work with a familiar teacher while learning from one of the other teachers across the network. The thing that I'm liking about this is our teachers, no one has done this online teaching before, and no one signed up for that. So we're all having to learn it. And what's happening is our teachers are learning from each other and critiquing one another, and also stealing from one another. And I noticed Brian Seymour speaking about this yesterday at Pickerington. The teachers there were finding that collaborating in this way was beneficial, and they're starting to really enjoy the camaraderie they're building. And that's what we're seeing too. And it's very, very encouraging. And I'll be intrigued to see that once things go back to something called normal, if this model of instruction might remain. I think that'll be an interesting question. So here's a look at our daily schedule. And again, to think about this across a network of 11 schools, each with its own personality, unique student population, unique school leader, history, and so forth. What we did across our network is the areas in orange are where we have shared virtual instruction. So we have our Fusion Ed classes at 11 in English and US history. Those are designed to prepare students for successful end of course exams. Then we have a career course right now. The career business class is on entrepreneurship. That starts at 11:45. At 1 o'clock, we have our CTSO is Career Tech Student Organization. So we have Skills USA. Our students are members of that. We've started some chapters. Flex means the buildings can use that time flexibly. So in our building, we have a Skills USA meeting perhaps one day. Last week, we had a guest presenter come in to talk about sonar radiology. We have students working on coding. I teach a piano class. I teach my kids how to play the blues. So each local school can kind of use that time to meet the needs of their students, either virtually or on campus. And then at 1:30, we have our Fusion Ed classes again, which are shared across the network. So the peak times before and after that, we left to local control so that the principals and teachers in each building could decide what is the best way for us to offer instruction for our students on our campus. So this is the first time our network has even tried to do something like this. Some things have gone well, others have not. But this is the structure that we started with, and then overall we all agree this is the right thing to do. You may be able to imagine what some of the struggles have been, and the biggest struggle has been ensuring all students have technology available to them so that they can engage virtual instruction. So we're not a one-to-one organization. We'll supply devices as we're able. But as we went to order some additional devices for our schools, we ran into the same struggle I'm sure everyone else did, which was a backlog of orders. So we're now in a position where we can give one to all the students who need them. And so I think this schedule will become something that we can more effectively actually implement in some schools. In my high school, we've been able to do this because we've just been situated such that the device problem isn't as a critical need as it has been in some of our other schools. So what are some of the benefits of a shared virtual? Well, we're piloting new core content classes. I noticed Dr. Buddy mentioned they rolled out new curriculum. Well, so did we. And you're just thinking, what are we doing? But you move forward with what your plans are, because you've got to do something. You can't just stay in a constant state of flux. So it's actually been a benefit for our teachers to work together as they're piloting these new classes. So all the content area teachers are participating together, developing these new courses and delivering them. They're supporting their students uniquely, as I mentioned. They're able to support one another. So we can have two teachers, one's presenting, the other one's doing all the tech support. And they're learning this course and best practices together. Again, while it's been challenging along the way, we're finding now that we're about 6 weeks in that this is a positive thing for our teachers, and they're appreciating working together. Our career courses we started a new career curriculum this year, and we ask all of our teachers to support that. So during that Orange Career Hour, all of the staff in the school are supporting career one way or another, whether it's supporting a live taught class on entrepreneurship, or offering students the chance to work through an IRC, like an OSHA credential, or Rise Up, which is a business credential, or Phone Doctor, a retail phone calling credential. The teachers are working directly on career-related content and supporting it. And they can support their students and teachers, and we have this opportunity to learn the course and just build momentum together in a career program, which is a new initiative for our network. So you can see this is kind of a repeat of the prior schedule. One of the questions that we had to think, and we are still thinking about now, is when can students be on site? When does that make sense? What are some of the ways that we could possibly use that on-site time? So this schedule kind of highlights, what are you going to do with your pink time? And that was a critical conversation with the building leaders as we were going along, to think strategically about how to use that local time in your own school. So what should we do? And this set us up with a number of questions that we really had to consider. How many students, each principal has to look at their own building. How many students can you have on site at one time, given the configuration of your building? What are you going to do with them? How are you going to handle hall changes? So we use the CDC guidelines to figure out square footage. We went, each building calculated that to figure out how many students could be in a room. We had to look at schedules. We had to look at all those things so that we could design a way for students to come on campus, participate safely themselves as well as the staff, and have that opportunity available to them. So some of the ideas we had, you could hold a seminar. At our school, we have a freshman seminar. It meets twice a month. We're senior seminar, it meets virtually. We have, I noticed Dr. Buddy in his presentation talked about having a family advocate who can support students, remove barriers. We have someone on staff, and she has started several different groups for students designed to address their unique needs. We have, the last 3 weeks, I've had students come in and talk about extended family members who've been murdered. And so, which is crazy. So we have kind of a grief group. What do you do with that? It's amazing. So how do we help those students, and how do we help their families? We have a growing percentage of our population this year are young single mothers. How do you balance life with child rearing? So we have a group called Balance Beam that starts today, as a matter of fact. So seminars like that meet unique needs are something that we're doing with our Pink Time. Academic affinity groups, we've talked about. We have a robotics team in our building, so students have been coming in and playing in our little maker space, small groups of them under the direction of the robotics STEM teacher. And so that's one way we can use the time, a creative writing group, some things like that. Fit, again, our tutoring time, and then career groups. These are all different, unique opportunities students have to come on campus or virtually to be able to address student needs in an enriching, creative way. It's tied to their pathway. So as Dr. Buddy mentioned, attendance is a very cool opportunity for non-traditional schools, but also a challenge this year. We report attendance weekly, and we must report it in hours. And so the good news is we can collect the learning they do at night or on the weekend. The tough news is we have to collect all that data, and it's a challenge to collect it. If they're online in a program that provides that hours for us, we can just take it from the tool. that's easy, but there's a lot of learning that is not done online. How do you count that? So probably like everyone else, our teachers and staff have had a substantial amount of time directed towards collecting attendance on students so that we can report it accurately to the state. So a much more higher commitment to rigorous outreach and engagement with the students. And then those who have sent out paper courses or packet work, they have, additional challenges in documenting that kind of learning and for attendance purposes as well. So that's been kind of a challenge for us. And then this is just referring to the fact that we have site-based scheduling, that each building can have some determination in deciding how to use the pink space, if you will. So this is the direction they were given, as I mentioned, to analyze their space, to determine the flow, to analyze their staff concerns and design the best plan. We had a couple weeks before school started that we pushed the start of school back like a lot did. And we used some of that time for an orientation where we brought students on campus. We have an orientation process called Discovery. And so anybody who's brand new to our system, we ask them to do this process with us. It helps them explore career ideas, explore their academic record, explore their plans. And we do that in person with a staff person appointed for that job. So they're able to build a relationship right away from the start to try to help the student get connected to their academic record, their plans, and try to help them set a schedule going forward. And so then these were some of the key questions that remained. How will you address key elements of getting students connected? How much do students actually need to be on START to get connected and to be able to start to work remotely? Those were some of the challenging questions we've had to take up. And then probably the last area of concern, which we've been trying to address, is parent engagement. Again, in a population where I'd say about a third of our students are minors and the others are adult students, it presents something different than, say, in an elementary scenario or even a traditional high school scenario, because who you communicate with changes, of course, when someone becomes an adult themselves. That said, our parent engagement, like for anyone, is a super important matter to us. So we have 2 virtual parent meetings a month. One of them is being handled by our family advocate team, and they are presenting some social emotional learning or practical parenting support tips to our parents across the state. Again, a virtual resource we're sharing across the network. And then as a school, we're offering one parent event a month as well. So twice a month, we're doing something with our parents to try to reach out to them. In addition to that, like Dr. Buddy, I communicate every Sunday night to parents with a phone call and an email and with texting, some things like that. We send mailings home, etc. But this is definitely an area that's proven challenge in COVID. So that's kind of the heart of what I wanted to present about what we're doing. And I'd love, with just a few minutes remaining, if there are any questions or clarifying, I'd love to entertain those. That's what I've got.
Well, this is amazing work, and you're riding a bucking bronco. This is Leilani speaking again. Wow, everybody gets their own personalized learning plan. That's the kind of work we see like with Classical Academy in San Diego and some of the school districts we work with in the state of Texas. But this is this is a lot of work, and there's a lot of communication. So I have a question, if I don't see anybody else ask any, and that is, do you feel like you've sort of stepped into like 10 times the amount of outflow communication that you've ever had before?
Oh, absolutely. And leading the staff to understand that too. You cannot be passive. For us, if a student has 72 consecutive hours of non-engagement with learning, we have to withdraw them, because we're a community school. That's the rule. So it's also critical for us to even continue to engage them. It's not just their lost learning. We lose access to them if we don't stay in touch with them. So, and it's so interesting. We did in-person orientation with every student, unless they explicitly, out of personal preference, requested a Zoom orientation. But we went through what we're doing, what's changed, what's new, and it was a very exciting launch. But then they go home, and you're like, hello. And we gave each student a daily schedule. 8 o'clock you're here, 9 o'clock you're here. Here's the Zoom link. Here's this. Here's that. But as is always the case with our population, but more so now, they choose whether they're going to engage or not. And so we're always very tasked with a substantial challenge of staying in touch with them, monitoring their progress. Hey, get back in that class. Can you finish that up? This type of thing. But it's
Mhm.
much more this year, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. And I hear that from so many places. It feels like, suddenly they're like an air traffic control person in terms of communication
Yeah.
more than ever before. There's nothing complacent about it. And
No.
that takes a lot of personal energy, right?
Yes.
People are not used to that. And I'm reminded, having been in the private sector for a while, what it was like to try to have, hire good salespeople who were willing to just jump on the phone, call anybody, just keep outflowing of communication all day, every day.
Yep.
Rarest person on earth to find people that will do that and
Yep.
actually do it, right?
Right.
And so now all your educators are in that position, right? And
That's
they're definitely not used to that. A lot of them are kind of introverted, and they're used
yes.
to having just closing the door and being like the queen, or king in their room, and that they just control this little dominion, and they're not used to this. So this is kind of an amazing moment. If you can even lead them to do that consistently, that's huge.
Yes, you are absolutely right. We've always had a protocol that our teachers have an advisory group of students and they're responsible with certain required attendance, administration. And in years past, you didn't have to be real heavy about that. But this year, we all have to kind of gather around this. So we meet several times a week. And one of our staff members put together a brilliant tracking device with the various ways that student attendance can be captured. And so we all contribute to it daily. So we can look at it and see charts and see colors like, hey, who we not heard from in a few days, that type of thing. And it's been kind of fun actually for us as a team just to look at that quickly and determine, what's happening over here, what's happening over there, who can help and who can go make a home visit, who can whatever. I love, again, Dr. Buddy's suggestions with the pop-up visits. I was thinking about maybe we could incorporate that in a positive way. Most of the time, if you see that you're home, it's because, hello,
Yeah.
what's going on? Where have you been? So I really like that idea. I think last year we polled our kids. We sent a survey out and asked, a number of questions, but one of them was, what was one of the top two things that we did that were most helpful to you in being able to successfully complete your responsibilities? And we graduated the highest number of students we ever have last spring, which surprised us all. And one of them was, the number one was the notes, the calls, the encouraging messages from the teachers. And so when people are discouraged about home visiting, or like, do I have to email them again? We're reminded that while the students' behavior may not change the way we'd like right away, this is what they said is the most meaningful thing to them. They owned their own, lack of engagement. That was another surprising result. They're like, it's my fault. I'm the one. I need to be stepping up. But basically, they're saying, but thank you for not giving up on me.
Yeah, I think that's really huge. I mean, I don't think you can ever underestimate that.
Nope.
That what we're finding, and I'll just say this before I jump off and go show a video and call on Despina, who's from Mind Research, and that is that we're living in a moment of like a new golden age of leadership in
Yeah.
terms of you don't just go to a building every day and make sure people showed up, right? And smile and greet people at the door and go check the financials. You're hard driving in the digiverse, right? The digital universe. And that takes a whole level of leadership we've never seen before. It's like a new resurgence of mindful driving, but not in a physical way, in the digital way. So, and that's, the more we sort of pay attention to that, we can sort of codify it. And I think you're one that maybe someday we need to come get your notes on all this. What happened?
Thank you. Well, thank you for this opportunity, Leilani. I really appreciate your work, and I appreciate being part of it today.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you, and I appreciate what you're doing for your students. Bless you. This is awesome. So, Dr. Sharon Watkins, thanks for being with us today.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. Okay.
Scholastic Literacy Pro is a blended reading solution for grades K through 6 that provides educators a single tool to monitor student reading activity, comprehension, and progress. With 3 built-in assessments evaluating students' reading readiness, reading level, and comprehension, Literacy Pro provides real-time data and robust reports to help inform instruction in a meaningful way.
Welcome to Literacy Pro. First, you'll identify lowercase letters.
For emerging readers, the Scholastic Reading Readiness Assessment determines mastery of foundational skills. It informs teachers about their early learners' reading abilities across alphabet recognition, phonemic awareness, syllabication, blending, and decoding. The results from Scholastic Reading Readiness will help teachers determine which students may need additional support in selecting independent reading books. For students who have already mastered foundational reading, Literacy Pro includes the Scholastic Reading Measure, which provides a valid and reliable lexile measure. In this adaptive assessment, students are asked to read passages and answer text-based multiple choice questions that show comprehension. Teachers can assign the Scholastic Reading Measure multiple times a year to monitor progress. At the end of the reading measure, students see their lexile, and educators can see a roll-up of all their students' lexiles as well as their growth over time. Literacy Pro also allows teachers to track both guided reading and lexile levels for every student, supporting either instructional approach. Teachers can always use the data provided to confer with students and communicate with families about their child's progress. The final assessment in Literacy Pro are Think More comprehension checks. Think Mores are text-based quizzes that students complete after they read any ebook or the thousands of paperback books that have connections within Literacy Pro. Think Mores for Spanish language books are available in Spanish as well. During a Think More quiz, students are encouraged to return to the text for evidence. They can view their answers and misconceptions immediately and choose to retake the quiz with a different set of questions. Think Mores provide valuable insight into whether students are comprehending what they read and provide detailed data on 10 higher-order thinking skills. Teachers can view every single question the student answered along with their misconceptions. Scholastic Literacy Pro's assessments were designed with the student in mind, while providing educators essential, authentic data to better inform their daily instruction.